Sai?
Hi guys, my name is Venkat Sairam Meram Sethi. You can just call me Sai. And I'm working in Kiva from past 2 years as a sustainability consultant. My major focus is on LCA, EPDs, and EU battery regulation. It's good to be here.
Hi, my name is Yixuan, and I'm a LCA and EPD project manager at Kiva since more than 2 years. Now I'm based in China, and I have a background in the chemical engineering and have experience in different product groups such as construction product, but also for the electronic products, and was involved also in the development of the product category rules. And now I'm also an EPD verifier. So nice to be here.
Yes, so we have a wide variety of experts right now in the topic of LCAs and EPDs. Sarah has expertise with chemical industry and also construction products. Sai has expertise with solar panels, batteries, and many complex products. And Ishwan has expertise, I think, in everything. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. There are no dumb questions, and we're here to guide you. And yes, does any of you have the slides to be shared? And then we can start.
Should we present on our own or?
Yes,
Beatrice?
you can please share the slides.
Okay. Just a second. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So welcome to the presentation. In this brief presentation, we would like to talk about LCA, CPDs, and product carbon footprints. Yeah, initially, I will be starting the presentation on the topic of LCA. So the main agenda would be going through three main different topics: life cycle assessment, EPD, and product carbon footprint. So let's get a deep dive into LCA. So we have different environmental products, for example, life cycle assessment, EPD, PCF, and PEF. But what is meant by life cycle assessment? What is meant by EPD? And why do they have to deal with in this present sustainability market? So let's deep dive into this topic. If you take a close look at this tree diagram, here you can see there are various regulations that are driving different kinds of products. For example, EN 15804 plus A2, which is driving environmental product declarations for construction and electronic products. And whereas for electronic products, we have EN 50693. And for other various products, we have different regulations. But if you take a close look at this tree diagram, here you can see everything is originated from life cycle assessment methodology, which is based on ISO 14040 and 44. So what is LCA? If I have to tell everything in a short way, it would be a holistic method where you can quantify the environmental impacts of your product by using a systematic method. That would be an LCA. It is totally based on the ISO standard 14040 and 44. So this is the definition which was given by ISO 14040. It means the compilation and evaluation of inputs, outputs, and potential environmental impacts of a product through its whole life cycle, like right from the raw material extraction till it gets uh, to the end of life. Everything is compiled and its environmental impacts are taken out. So this is actually is used as a basis for many product regulations, for example, EPD, PCF, PEF, or EU battery regulation, and many other. LCA has mainly four main steps in order to perform an LCA, which are goal and scope definition, inventory analysis, and then impact assessment, and then interpretation. So out of LCA, you kind of get various results. So you can benefit from LCA study in various dimensions. For example, product development and improvement. If you want to improve the product and you want to make some strategies accordingly, you can use the LCA results as a basis for your next product development. And if you want to make any public policies, for example, EU battery regulation or any other circular economy related regulations, they always consider LCA study as a backup. And then based on these LCA study results, they kind of make the public policies. And you can also use LCA studies for marketing and for many other purposes. So coming to each step of an LCA, goal and scope. This is the first and foremost step of an LCA where you try to define your goal and scope of the study. It's like, what is your study meant for? Like, what kind of products are included in the study? Who are your targeted audience? Why are you doing this study? You need to define each and every step in this initial phase. If you're trying to set your boundaries to cradle to gate or cradle to grave, you need to figure out everything here in this main step. If you are doing, if you want to do an LCA, you need to quantify your results per a particular unit. It could be a functional unit or a declared unit. You need to define what is your functional unit in this first and foremost step. All the assumptions, data quality, allocation methods need to be defined precisely in goal and scope. If you make everything right in goal and scope, it will be easy for you to get into the second step where lifecycle inventory happens, where you try to quantify the material inputs and outputs or emissions across all the system boundaries by making process flowcharts, where you try to quantify for each and every unit what are the elementary flows and how do you consider them. So this is the second step of an LCA where the data sets like secondary data sets can be used in LCI. So I'm talking a lot about system boundaries. What are system boundaries? So your product manufacturing has various phases, but you only consider certain parts or certain stages of the life cycle. It depends upon your expectations or your uh, area of focus. You can define your system boundaries. For example, in this circle, you can see a product is being produced uh, right from the production, and then it is being transported and then get into construction where the utilization of the product happens, and then it goes to end of life, and then it gets recycled. So if you take from this, if you consider this as a cradle where everything is being poured into the production, and if you consider a product cradle to gate, it will be from A1 to A3, which consists of extraction of raw materials till the production. But if you consider cradle to grave, it goes all the way up until here, end of life. So it depends upon your situation and then your requirements. You can set the boundaries for your LCA study. And the third most important step of an LCA would be life cycle impact assessment method. until now you have quantified all your inputs and outputs and you made your elementary flows. So now we need to use a rightful method and an impact assessment method where you can quantify the inventory into a quantifiable results. For example, in terms of impact category, what would be the result of a climate change of your product? So you can quantify, it could be 2 kgs or 3 kgs or something like that, using a right impact assessment method. So an impact category is something where all the environmental related factors are considered, and they are quantified into a typical category. Here it is, as an example, we can take it as climate change. The commonly used impact assessment methods. So in these methods, you have various impact categories. For example, climate change or acidification, acidification, and renewable energy, and there are many other impact categories. Based on your requirements, you can choose the rightful methods, and these are the most common methods which are available in the market, like recipe, EF 3.1, and IPCC. One important factor you need to consider before selecting an impact assessment method, the standards never say you need to take a particular impact category for your LCA study. It all depends upon your needs and your practitioner experience and choices. So the fourth stage would be the important stage, where you try to convey the results of a LCA study to the common public or to the stakeholders, where you try to improve the product. This is the interpretation, where everything makes sense, where you try to test the sensitivity of major elements and assess the quality of the study. You try to pinpoint the significant impacts. So in considering my production process, what is the major impact in my product? For example, you have a steel component which is increasing the carbon footprint of your product. You can try to make some changes to the product. For example, instead of steel, what kind of material can I use that decreases the carbon footprint or environmental footprint, but at the same time it provides me the same stability. So these kind of things and sensitivity analysis can be performed, and the results will be let known to the public in the stage of interpretation. These are the 4 main steps of an LCA. So LCAs are also different types, but the most common types of LCAs are attributional LCA and consequential LCA. Attributional LCA is an LCA where you try to perform an LCA on the existing product based on the data of the existing production process. It is based on the historical data. For example, you have a production plant and you are producing some product X, and you have all the processes relevant for this product X. So then you take the relevant data and you perform an LCA, then it is an attributional LCA. Like all the existing regulations, they kind of use attributional LCA to quantify their products. For example, EPDs, PCFs, or PEFs. In consequential LCA, this is something mostly used for the public policy making. For example, if you are making a product and you think certain consequences might impact your environmental impacts of your product, then you try to use this consequential LCA. For example, you have an electricity grid mix of a coal of, let's say you have electricity grid mix of green energy at the moment. Like what if it changes to 50% coal, and what if it changes to 30% of hydro energy? How would it impact your results? All these kind of things can be done in consequential. It is dynamic, whereas attributional is linear. And where you can also consider various political, economical, and other standards for consequential LCM. Some additional info: there are various softwares that are being used in the market for doing an LCA study. For example, CIMAPRO and Gabi Now it is called as Spera. And we also have our own software, Rethink, which is specialized for PCFs and EPDs. And there are many secondary databases where you can select the inventory from. For example, EcoInvent, Spera, and we also have PEF, which is developed by JRC, European regulations. And that's it. Thank you very much. And now I hand it over to my colleague Sarah.
Thanks, Sai. In the next few minutes, I will introduce Environmental Product Declaration, or EPDs. EPDs are based on LCA. That means that we can analyze different type of products to see what is their environmental impact throughout the whole entire life cycle, from beginning from raw material to end of life. And also it shows that companies like to show and understand the impact of their product and environment, and also to show them, to report those results in a transparent way. EPDs are based on environmental data. They include quantifiable environmental information based on harmonized scientific methodology. And sorry, and this increases the trust the data, and also make the results objective and comparable. Also, EPDs must be third-party verified. That means that an independent verifier should verify the EPDs and all of the data in the document. So it also increases the trust to the data. Having an EPD will help you or help companies for the marketing of their product, specifically for some sectors like construction sectors, that EPDs might be mandatory, for example, for green building certification. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to show you here a table of some environmental impact categories that you can see in an EPD. The whole table will be more comprehensive, but it's just one example to see different types of environmental indicators, not only GWP, but also others like ozone depletion or acidification, eutrophication, or water use will be reported for your product. Also, for example, global warming potential could be reported in different categories as a total, and also based on fossil carbon or biogenic carbon. So you will have very specific information of impact of your product and environment. If I want to summarize the advantage of having an EPD, as I said, the first thing is that it can show the performance of your product and the impact of your product and environment. So you will see some values which are not only numbers, but also can provide good information of impact of your product and environment based on different categories. Also, it shows that companies stay with rules and regulation. And as I said previously, EPDs are based on harmonized scientific methodology, so they are comparable and can provide good information for your clients also. And the last thing is, as I showed in the previous table, it's not only CO2 emission report, it covers also many other indicators that could provide insight to effect of your product and, for example, energy consumption or water consumption or other areas. EPDs may differ based on the type of product and the standards that they follow. For example, if you want to have your EPDs for construction products, it should be based on EN 15824. and also based on product category rules or PCR. And then life cycle stages could be shown in different modules, and in some cases, it's possible to have all information only as A1 to A3 as a one number or one value. And benefits and loads outside of a product system will be shown in module D. Also, if you want to have EPDs for electric or electrical products, the standard will change. It will be based on EN 15693 and also product-specific rules, PSR, rather PCR. And again, life cycle stages could be shown in stages. And for benefits and loads outside of product system, there's also option to report results separately for each life cycle stage. And in this slide, I would like to introduce our software called Rethink, which is a software for LCA calculation and EPD and CCF. This software is completely based on standards and rules that EPDs should be based on different type of products. Also, one option of this software is that you can have the country-specific regulation. You can apply those, consider those during your calculation. There is option of having different templates based on different products you may have. As I said, an EPD should be verified independently, and this software make it much easier. Just by click, you can submit it to the verifier, and it can make the whole process of verification smooth and easy. Another option of our software is that it's possible to import all of the data which are required for LCA calculation by Excel files. So easily you can import everything as an Excel file, and immediately you will see the results and the software. Here you can see a structure of one EPD, which is created by Rethink. The first photo is the front page of one EPD, and as you see, it includes the name of the product and also the photo of product, logo of your company, besides the logo of Kiba and Eco platform, and also the standards that EPDs are based on. Those will be mentioned, and also the validity time. And the next photo is one chapter of the EPD at end, which is interpretation of result. And at end, by this diagram in different colors, you will see the indicators in different modules. And below, there's a text that that help us to easily understand the results of this calculation and this EPD. And in the next slide, I also like to show you the one of the chapter of EPDs includes results. As you see here, you will have different indicators, unit, and also values based on different modules. So you will see module A1 to A3, also total A1, A3, and other modules, module Z, and for each indicators, it's easily you can see everything. And this document will be provided easily by our software. And here also you can see how our software works. You can easily import anything as raw materials, as energy consumption, electricity consumption, anything that is part of your production process. And then immediately you will see the table of results in the software. And also there's other options. For example, in the left side of this photo, you can see different options that by clicking easily you can see and also create different parts of EPDs. Yeah. And then thank you. After finishing one EPD, as I said, it should be verified. After finalizing the verification, it must be signed by the program operator and also by the verifier. and then it will be uploaded on different databases. For example, Kiva Ecobability Expert database, EcoPortal database, or EcoBodot. And it makes it much easier for your client to access your EPDs, so it increases trust. And to wrap up my part, I'd like to summarize the services we offer for EPDs. We can prepare EPDs for different product or different product group you may have. Also, we can provide you with our software licenses, so easily you will be able to create your own EPDs in-house. And don't worry, it's not difficult at all. And we also will offer you many onboarding sessions and training sessions for your team member, and we will support you throughout the EPD development process and verification process. Thank you very much, and my colleague Ishuan will continue with PCF part.
Thank you, Sarah. So today I'm going to present the product carbon footprint, the PCF, based on the ISO standard 14067. So in this session, I would like to explain what a PCF is, why it's becoming increasingly important, and how it relates to life cycle assessment and environmental product declarations. The goal is to make this topic understandable if you are new to LCA or carbon footprinting. So why PCF is important today? So climate change is one of the central global challenges, and companies are increasingly required to measure and reduce their carbon emissions. So there are several drivers on the market. In Europe, the EU Green Deal sets the overall direction. The CSRD increases the transparency obligations. The ESPR, Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, introduced the new sustainability requirements for products, and also the DPP, Digital Product Passport, will require the structured environmental data. And also schemes like CBAM introduce carbon pricing mechanisms for the imports. So all of these developments make the product level carbon data essential. So what is a product carbon footprint? So a PCF represents the total greenhouse gas emissions associated with a product. So it includes the emissions across the life cycle and is expressed in CO2 equivalents. So the methodology is also based on the life cycle assessment, but the PCF focuses only on the impact category of the climate change. So a key principle of PCF is the life cycle perspectives from the life cycle assessments. So this means that we need to assess the emissions from stages like raw material extraction to production, transport, the use stage, and end of life stage. And this prevents shifting emissions from one stage to another. So how can we calculate one PCF? So the process begins usually just like the LCA framework with defining the goal and scope, where we need to define the functional unit or the declare unit, meaning what exactly we are measuring. Then we need to define the system boundary, which processes or which models need to be included in the study. And then we start to collect the data regarding raw materials, energy consumption, or the transport. And after conducting the life cycle inventory, the emissions will be calculated, and the result will be then interpreted before reporting. So there are some rules under the ISO standard 14067. For example, firstly, the PCF only evaluates the climate change as a single impact category. Then carbon offsetting is not allowed in the calculation. The transparency and documentation are required, and a third-party review or verification can be needed to increase the credibility. So how to understand then that the relationships between LCA, PCF, and EPD? So let's say life cycle assessment is like a comprehensive environmental assessment covering multiple impact categories. And the PCF uses the LCA methodology, but focuses only on one impact category, which is the global warming potential or the climate change. And EPD is a formally published and also verified document based on the LCA results. So LCA is like the full environmental background study, and PCF extracts only the carbon emission, this element, and EPD is verified and publicly communicate declaration based on LCA. They all serve different purposes, but are connected regarding the methodologies. There are a number of benefits of conducting a PCF. So first, the environmental hotspots can be identified across the product lifecycle, so the company can take targeted measures to reduce their carbon footprint. And incorporating environmental impacts into decision making can help optimize the selection of suppliers or raw materials or product design and the manufacturing processes, which can enable the cost-effective CO2 reduction measures. And also, it can support the Scope 3 reporting and ESG compliance, and ensures the readiness for carbon-related regulations and the increasing supply chain transparency demands. Also, it can strengthen the competitive advantages where it demonstrates the climate responsibility and enhance the credibility with your customers and stakeholders. So as Kiva, we also provide the PCF-related services in terms of the calculation, but also the verification. Regarding calculation, we also use our own web LCA tool called Rethink, which we just introduced to you. So if you are interested or if you have any question regarding PCF, LCA, or EPD, please feel free to contact us. So that's all from my part, and thank you for listening.
All right, thank you so much. You're amazing teachers. If you all have questions, please ask the questions in the chat. And until the questions arrive, I will go back in time to the time I was a student and I didn't know about these topics, because there are questions that I asked myself back then. And yes, so I have the first question, and is, how do you set the system boundaries of your LCA?
As I said earlier, you need to define your goal and scope of your study. For example, if you are creating a product for a certain kind of audience, you need to set your system boundaries for example, how can I give you an example? Yeah, let's take an example of a company which produces two different products at the same time, and you're concentrating on a particular kind of product. So you need to consider the system boundaries only for this particular kind of product. Although you're also doing your calculations for other product, you only consider for product A, not for product B. And you try to design everything, every process flow chart, inputs and outputs only for product A. And you do certain kinds of allocations for that particular system boundary. And if you have in your goal, it is only being given to certain kind of audience, for example, who only concentrated from only on your manufacturing production. So then you can go to cradle to gate, so which only gives them the analysis of the results for this particular time, A1 to A3. So that's how you set the system boundaries.
Okay, thank you so much. So in a simple way will be, if I am designing my model, I have to truly understand what do I want from it.
Exactly.
Okay, I see two questions in the chat. In the modeling of PCF in Europe, normally which impact method is selected, EF or IPCC or anything else?
Yeah, so that's a nice question. So usually you're right. There are different methods regarding also the impact category of climate change, and EF 3.1 or let's say IPCC are both used, are both seen in the market. So they are all used.
Thank you. Next question. What is the price for Rethink? Is the software based or standalone? The price depends on the use. We can have different licenses. We have licenses for consultants. We have licenses for companies. We have also Rethink as a training where we can also teach how to use Rethink to develop yourself the EPDs, and we only give the guidance, but the EPDs are developed by you. So there are different models for the Rethink license. You can text us about it and we can share you the details. How to validate the system boundary you define? Is it go to third-party verifier?
Yeah, if you're doing an independent LCA, it doesn't need to be verified. But if you're doing an EPD, or if you want to make yourself a study which is available for all the people and which is legit, then you go for third-party verifier. You need to explain your system boundaries in your estimations and assumptions. What did you consider for the LCA study, and what are the things that are considered and not considered? You need to mention it clearly to the verifier, and then once the verifier validates it, then it's good to go into the public. You can also have unverified LCA reports.
I had the question, what's the difference between an LCA and an EPD, and how do I know which one to choose?
I would say, what is your purpose? Like, why do you want an LCA and why do you want an EPD? For example, if you have a regulation where you want to show a third-party verified document to your customers as a marketing purpose, then I would always go for an EPD, because it is already a regulated product where you can quantify your environmental impacts and show to the customer, my product has certain amount of CO2 and certain amount of acidification and eutrophication, and then the customer can decide whether he wants to go to your product, or you can claim it as a sustainability product by showing this document. Then you go for EPD. Or if you want to make any public decisions, then you go for LCA.
Okay, thank you. For products which are not yet found in the product category rules, what can we do?
Ishwan, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I can answer that. So usually for the EPD, like when talking about EPD, usually we try to find one specific PCR product category rules for that product group. If this kind of PCR is not available on the market, either we try to develop one PCR for that product group, or we try to use the general PCR, let's say for example, for the construction products. So there's always a way to have one PCR when calculating the EPD.
Okay, thank you. And if you could give me like a simple answer, what's the difference between PCF, LCA, and EPD, and how to make the right choice between the three of them?
For my understanding, LCA is like a framework and it's the basis for also for EPD and PCF. So if we're talking about EPD and PCF, the framework or the methodology is all the life cycle assessment. So that one is the basic and the framework. But regarding the communication, if we try to have the document or the results publicly communicated, and get it through one third party verified, then maybe selecting EPD will be a good option. And if we are only focusing on the carbon emissions, like the CO2 emissions, if that's only one indicator is crucial for us, then PCF will be an option. But PCF and EPD at the end, they are all based on the methodology of the LCA. And the LCA is, like to say, the comprehensive one of the environmental assessment for the products.
Thank you. There are two more questions. How long it will often take and what types of data we need to conduct an LCA for a product?
Usually it depends upon the product situation. If you're taking a small and simple product, it might take at least a month or something to collect the data and to do an LCA. But if you are doing an EPD, then it takes 3 to 4 months because of external verification and stuff. As I said, it also depends upon the product scenario. Depending upon your product, you need to collect all the inputs and outputs of your production process based on your considered system boundaries.
Thank you. With the EU scaling back on the CSRD, is EPD still a major compliance requirement for importing goods from outside the EU?
So I can maybe answer that. So maybe we are mixing up like the CBAM, maybe the CBAM with CSRD and the concept of EPD. So if we are considering importing goods from outside of the EU, now there is the so-called CBAM regulation for the carbon pricing mechanism for imports. But that's the different scope than CSRD or the EPD. So EPD is like based on the ISO standard 14025, and in Europe it's based on EN 15804 for the construction products. And there are also other schemes or regulations that is relevant to EPD. Let's say, for example, the new CPR, the construction products regulations. So yeah, you are right that we have now different regulations scaling back or changing on the market. But for now, we also see the trend like regarding construction product or the electronic product that more and more EPDs or verified environmental data are needed on the market.
Yeah, thank you. I can also add on that, and the answer also is yes, because at the end, an EPD is a verified document that gives the data about your product. So this is always going to be a benefit for the CSRD because you already have the data, and not only for the product itself, but also for the electricity and other types of inputs and outputs. Therefore, having an EPD, it's always helping the compliance with the EU regulations. Should we consider capital infrastructure in LCA of concrete products?
What exactly do you mean by capital infrastructure?
So capital goods typically include long-lived assets like concrete plant buildings, cement kilns and grinding mills, ready-mix batching equipment, trucks and loaders, factory infrastructure and utilities.
No, they don't. You don't consider them in your LCA. That's where the system boundaries comes in. You only consider the production process and the materials that go within the system boundary. You don't consider the energy inputs for the labor who are working there or the infrastructure which was already there. You don't consider them in LCA.
Thank you. Yes, generally speaking, infrastructure is almost always excluded unless the PCR explicitly states that you need to include it. Right. So in case there are no more questions, we're going to close the meeting. If you have further questions or also about the license of Rethink, I sent my email in the chat and we will also send a follow-up email. I would like to thank all of my colleagues, Savio, Sara, Sai, and Ishwan, for the webinar. It was amazing. You shared so much valuable information, and I wish you all the best and have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.